Welcome to Cutoff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
I am Richard Castle, the producer and co-pilot today.
Woohoo!
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year, Julie.
Happy New Year! We're back!
It's our first podcast of 2019.
We haven't seen each other in a month.
Oh, my God. How did we ever get through it?
I don't know. I drove by periodically just because I missed you.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I did some drive-bys. Is that weird?
So was that you that the dog was barking at every time you walked by? Okay.
He knew it was me. That loud girl's driving by. That's what he thinks, because I'm the loud girl, in case you didn't know.
You know, Julie brought me this lovely late Christmas gift, which I love.
Okay, it's only late because you weren't here Christmas Eve.
That's right. She called me
All
and
right.
said, please, are you home? I want to drop something by. And I'm glad she didn't just surprise me because I was not home.
I almost left it behind the planter.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been bad because it rained that
It
night.
rained, right?
Yes.
Well, she bought me this beautiful T-shirt that has piano keys in the shape of DNA.
Come on.
It couldn't be more perfect.
How
because
could I have resisted that?
I am a pianist, and I am also this erstwhile podcast DNA person. So,
Yay,
you know.
erstwhile. Yeah, I had to have it. So,
Well, no, I have to have it.
yes, well, and you do.
She's an Indian giver. Oh, that's so racist. Oh, my God.
Oh my gosh. In the new year, that's our first racist comment.
I can't believe it took me this long to get to it.
I can't either, frankly.
I have to watch what I say. I forget other people are here besides you and me, Julie.
A dog is here.
A dog is here, and he's...
You mean other people listening?
Yes.
Oh, sure, I get it. I understand.
I apologize, people. I'm so old that I still say inappropriate things. So tell me about your holidays, Julie.
Oh, they were, I'm going to say good.
Were they?
No, they were great.
Okay.
It was very nice. It was so great to have my whole family back in the house again.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh,
Okay.
my gosh. Yeah, I had a rough year last year, and it was a really good time for us to all reboot and just appreciate each other.
Right.
Appreciate each other for what we do have and realize how lucky we are and how blessed we are. So, yeah, it was very nice and very relaxing.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, you know, it's funny. I had a really nice holiday. I mean, I was super busy because I play piano at parties and things like that.
The cops are flying over, by the way.
Oh, God. They found me. Go to commercial break, quick. No, but actually, I was at a few parties where somehow the subject of DNA came up, so I was able to bring up this podcast and talk it up. And it wasn't like I was trying to advertise it, but it just came up in conversation. I was at a New Year's Day party, and this guy who was hosting it said, "Oh, I want you to meet my cousin. I just found her on Ancestry."
Boom.
Right?
Yeah.
And she was there, and they had all these common relatives, but they had never met. And these people were in their, I'm going to say, 60s. And it was so nice. They found family. And it was like
So it wasn't an adoption situation. It was just they were distant relatives that
they found out that there was some like grandparent or great-grandparent that were brother and sister that didn't...
acknowledge each other.
Yeah, they had stopped speaking, and they, people had come from
that
Russia
happens,
or
sure.
or Eastern Europe somewhere. But anyway, it was just so fascinating, and there they were at the party, and they were
love it.
so happy to have found relatives, that way.
See, it's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be about angst and who am I. It can just be about reconnecting.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, and finding out what they had in common. It turns out she only lived maybe 20 miles from him. All
Always.
this, and he's lived here all his life and never knew. Isn't that crazy?
Yep. Well, no, it's not because
No.
it happens every day.
Yeah, but I thought it was, and so I told them about the podcast, and they're probably listening. Hello.
Maybe they're those two new listeners that I saw.
Maybe.
Actually, you know what? It was interesting because this is the first time since we started that I haven't released a new episode every week. We took 2 weeks off, which was a little scary, actually.
Why?
I don't know, because I'm used to watching the numbers.
Oh, well, the holidays, everything's messed up.
But we got downloads every day. Like there were certainly new listeners
Well, that's
coming
the
in.
nice thing about streaming is that people can just listen on demand. They don't
Exactly.
have to, I love
yeah,
that.
and new people can go right back to the beginning. So it's kind of an exponential type
I know.
extravaganza.
When I tell people, because this is episode 35.
Indeed.
And when I tell people to go back and listen, they say, well, where should I start? And I'm like, well, it's,
One.
let's start at the very
Yes,
beginning.
it's a very good place to start. Right.
I said, but you can kind of pop in anywhere, but you'll get the best listener experience if you start at the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I tell people. And I know the look in their eye is like, really? I'm like, trust me.
My niece was driving out to Arizona over the holidays, and she texted me. She's like, what was the name of that podcast that you're on? She wanted to listen to it on the drive, and she loved it.
Oh, good.
So she's hi, Michelle. She's a listener now.
Michelle. Thanks for coming out.
Here I am calling out my family. I feel like the teacher in Romper Room. I see Jimmy and Buddy and Polly and
We should
Michelle.
do that every week. Well, we do actually.
Yeah. Do we?
We call out not family members, but like people on the Facebook page. If people say something nice or have a question,
we should do more family members. I think we really need to have more nepotism.
Yes, because we're making a load of money doing this. So we should bring everybody in on it.
Exactly.
Okay, so welcome back, guys. The first, I'm gonna, truth be told, this first segment was pre-recorded in early December,
right.
I guess.
Yes.
And we thought that we should air it now just so that it doesn't get too far behind.
Yeah, and there were some relevant things that are there are things that are still relevant even a month later.
Right. So then when we come back from the break, we'll be live again.
If you're enjoying Cutoff Jeans, please subscribe, rate, and review. Now, back to Julie and me.
So let's get into it. I want to tell you guys about Blaine Bettinger's new website he recently launched. It's called DNA Central.
DNA Central, okay.
Yes, and it is literally a central place for you to go for all your DNA needs.
Wow.
Yeah. It's got, right now it's got 10 self-guided DNA courses. And with like more keep coming in. Bi-weekly newsletters with the latest news and developments, a growing webinar and short video library.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it just keeps growing. And soon they're going to offer, or he's going to offer self-guided courses that are all levels, complete with homework, a final grade, and a certificate.
Really?
How cool is that?
I'd love to get a certificate in something.
Too. Anything, just anything.
Anything.
Yeah,
Basket
participant.
weaving. Yes, participant. Yes.
Anyway, you've heard me talk about Blaine before. He is the go-to guy for all things genetic genealogy, and he's a mensch to boot. And it's a nominal fee. I don't know what it is right now. He runs specials all the time,
but it's worth it.
It's well worth it. Believe you me. And if there's stuff, if there's GEDmatch stuff that I don't know the answer to, and we all know there are, you can go to he has videos where he talks about GEDmatch. He breaks down GEDmatch.
Right. You've referred people to his YouTube channel or something before,
yes.
haven't you? Yes.
Yeah.
So now he's putting it all in one place.
He's putting it all in one place.
That's great. Yeah. More, the more knowledge out there, the better. Right. I think.
Right. So shout out to Blaine. Check it out, you guys. DNAcentral.com. Hey, last night, TLC aired a new pilot. By the way, you already know that we're recording this, so it wasn't really last night. But anyway.
You watched this last night.
I watched this last night.
And most of these things are on demand now, or people can watch them whenever they want.
That is true. It was called a pilot. I don't know if it means it was picked up or they were just testing it out. I actually know a couple of genealogists that worked on it.
I'm a co-pilot here at the podcast, and I've never been picked up.
I have nothing to add to that.
Pick me up, Julie. I'm on the floor. I've fallen and I can't get up.
I can't lift you. Okay, so it was called I Should Have Known.
I Should Have Known.
Yes, and it is about people. It's basically about NPEs.
Oh, wow.
People who've discovered later in life that they are either donor conceived or that one of their parents, or that they're completely adopted.
The title is a little shaming. I should have known.
It is, and there was actually a lot of shaming.
Was there?
I will say. Well, this girl kind of like, this woman who discovered that she was donor conceived kind of dragged her mother over the coals on camera.
Oh, dear. Wow. Well, that makes for good TV.
And the mom was drinking. Like, you knew it was coming because she's like, do you want a cup of tea? And she goes, no, I think I'll have a drink. So she knew something was coming. No. And like every time she'd ask her a question, she'd like gulp on her drink.
Oh my God.
But it was actually really entertaining. And it wasn't like a look back. It was you kind of went through it like they did testimonials, and you saw conversations with genealogists.
Okay. So it didn't feel like an exploitation thing,
No.
I mean, they didn't trick anybody, right? Like
No.
Okay, like spring it on somebody
Oh,
on
no.
camera.
On camera,
yeah,
no.
Yeah.
No.
By the way,
that happens. That does happen.
I know, and I don't like that stuff. It makes me feel icky.
Me too.
You know, like it's such a private thing.
Yeah, don't
It's
do
one
that.
thing to do a documentary where somebody talks about it, but to like actually spring it on them and you know,
yeah.
that kind of news.
Yeah, well, it's like those 90s talk shows where they'd say,
Yes.
and he's here.
Yeah, exactly. We have the results of that DNA test, and we're going to tell you who the daddy is. You know, oh, I
Yes.
hate that stuff.
Yeah. There was one of those shows, it might have been Jenny Jones, in the 90s where there was a soap opera actor, I think, that was adopted, and he came on the show to talk about what it was like to be adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And he had no idea that his biological mother was there. And his adoptive parents were in the audience.
Oh, dear.
And they sprung it on him like that in front of his parents, which, you know, I'm sure they were cool about it, but that is super awkward if they didn't know that was going to happen either.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
That's not,
Yeah.
I don't enjoy that at all.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable to
Yes.
watch because you could tell he was bitter about the whole
Yeah,
thing.
you get railroaded or something. You
Yeah.
know? Suddenly you're thrown into a situation, an emotional situation that you were not prepared for. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you prepare for it anyway, but to something so private to have it, you know,
Well,
in
it's
front of
almost
everybody.
like nowadays, because it happens so often, I think everybody guesses that's what's going to happen. Or they think they're going to win a free trip to Disney.
You know, it's almost like when I was a little kid and my brother would be on the phone, my older brother, you know, he's 7 years older than me, and I would do something stupid like, I don't know, spill something or whatever. And my brother would yell at me while he was on the phone. He'd be like, oh, guess what my brother Rich just did? And I'd be like, Jerry, do you have to let the world know? I mean, the world.
The
He was
world,
talking
he's
to
on
his
the
best
phone with the
friend.
world.
So, yeah, it's just like that.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Exactly. But it's the same type of general feeling, I think. Or not. I don't know. Speaking of adoption.
Oh, were we? All right, yes.
Yeah, we were.
Okay.
We spoke about this a couple weeks ago. I was having a conversation recently with a new mother who had recently adopted
Okay.
2 girls. And I was reaching out to her for a potential first cousin or a half sister. So I was telling her about this woman, and I said, and she was given up for adoption. And she said to me, by the way, the correct term is made an adoption plan. No, actually, because she said, oh, that could be my uncle. He made an adoption plan. And I said, what does that even mean? What do you mean adoption plan? She said he made a plan to give up children and I'm like, that's weird. And then I went back, I kept talking, and then she came back and said it again. By the way, you said gave up. It's make an adoption plan.
There's a whole new way of saying it.
Well, right. And it's one of those things that I think for contemporary adopters and adoptees to soften the whole
Sure.
adoption thing. The lingo is now, let's make an adoption plan. Like when they're trying to get somebody to give up their baby, they'll say, well, let's make an adoption plan. Like it was all planned out in the first place.
I see. So like in the 70s, you got knocked up, but in the 2000s, you made a family plan.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was kind of, and I appreciate that. And for people who have never, this is new to them, and it's adoption, the face of adoption has completely changed, as we all know.
Right.
But, in the 60s, we were given up.
Right. Yeah.
And there's really no way around that. So I appreciate that she said that, and I asked a few people on in the group how they thought about it. I got a lot of interesting answers.
I would think that, like with any situation, you can use whatever terms and phrases make you feel the most comfortable or that explain the situation as you see it. So if
Precisely.
you either are given up because that's how you feel about what happened with you, or someone made a plan to give you up.
Right. Yeah, my guess is nobody planned to get pregnant to then give a child up.
Right.
I think that's what rubs me the wrong way. And also, I don't want to be corrected by somebody who is not themselves part of the triad, what I like to call the adoption triad,
Right.
An adoptive parent, a biological parent, and an adoptee.
Well, as none of that triad, I have my own opinions.
Right, but
All
you're
of
not
which-
allowed to correct me.
Exactly. No, but I mean, I understand what you mean, and sure, it's a different situation when you are one of those.
Sure.
You're in one of those three roles.
Sure.
But yeah, I agree. I think that you should use the term that you're most comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, because when you think about it as a plan, I'll just be devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, somebody could give up that baby by choosing not to have that baby.
Right.
Right. So that then instead of that, in lieu of aborting the child,
right,
they would then
make a plan
to give up that baby for adoption, or to what not give up, if you're not going to use the word give up. I don't know. I don't have the nomenclature, but I guess that would be a plan. Like, I'm either going to keep this baby.
Well, that's what the adoption agencies have. That's their vernacular.
Right.
So let's make an adoption plan.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting conversation.
Sure, I bet.
Yeah. So anybody has anything else to say about that? Have at it.
Yeah, like, what do you guys think about it? Listening to it. How do you feel about the giving up versus making an adoption plan?
Right.
And when does one is one's phrase warranted over the other?
Exactly. That's a good idea. And you know what? I think we need to get out of here for a break because a trash truck is coming.
We got to get out of the way. We're doing this in the middle of the street by the trash. That's why we need it. We don't want to get picked up and recycled.
Hurry! We got to go.
Okay. Take a break. Thank you for listening to Cutoff Jeans, the new podcast starring Julie Dixon Jackson.
And we're back.
Hello again.
Hello.
It was fun to hear our voices from a month ago.
We've changed so much.
I was like, did I have a different voice back then? No, it's just a new microphone.
It was an accent.
We're upgrading the studio, folks.
Yeah, new microphones, new shirts.
New year, new shirt. Yeah, exactly. A whole new wardrobe.
I'm still wearing my Wellesley. You know what? I was just thinking, I'm so glad that we're not a video podcast. Because as I dragged myself out the front door today, I was like, it's just Rich.
Can you imagine the pressure? Well, thanks for that.
You've seen me at my worst and my best.
I'll avert my eyes.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
you
you
look
so much.
fine. You look fine. But yes, I wouldn't want it to be a video podcast either.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Oh, God.
All
right. I have a cautionary tale.
Ooh, cautionary.
Yeah, I don't know if it's cautionary, but it's something that, as adoptees and people who are looking for immediate family, we're often told that if you don't have anything closer than a third cousin match, it's useless. And indeed, if you're looking for a parent, that's going to be very difficult if you know nothing about them.
Okay.
So that is true if you are looking for biological parents. However, never disregard more distant matches for your genealogy.
Okay, explain.
I will explain. So in 2014, when I first started testing with 23andMe, I'd filter my DNA matches by birth location. This is before I'd found Malcolm, not my dad. And anyone who would come up under Australia that didn't match my mother would be someone to look at, obviously.
Right.
One of the few people that responded back then was a lady in Melbourne, and her name was Robin. And she was like a fourth to sixth cousin, which at the time I didn't realize how distant that was. I was just so excited to have somebody that wasn't related to my mother that was Australian.
Sure.
And she wasn't really into genealogy. She didn't have a tree yet, but she supplied me with a number of names that she knew were in her ancestral lines. And of course, I couldn't figure it out, but
You were a newbie.
I was a noob. So after
you had not earned your Gen Genie stripes
I
yet.
had not even close. So after I found Malcolm, not my dad, I assumed that the connection was somewhere up his Fraser line because she had Frasers in that line. So I figured it must be that. Right. Of course, fast forward, Malcolm is not my dad, so it's obviously not the Fraser line, or at least not his Fraser line.
Okay.
So didn't think anything of it. So I went back to knowing nothing about my paternal line, but by then I'd realized that if you have zero info on who you're looking for, it's highly unlikely anything further than a third cousin would be able to help, particularly if you were new. So my point is, which is what I already said, but my point is that's when I really realized that I may as well not even look at these if I don't know who my father is yet.
Really?
Because
Yeah.
unless they have a very hashed out tree.
Did it send you down some garden paths? Is that why? I mean, like...
Well, I went down many, many garden paths
Yeah.
back then. And it wasn't until I actually talked to Cece for the first time that I told her the whole story. And she'd been reading my blog. And she's and she basically said, you don't have a close enough match right now. So I was like, all right, well, this is about me getting my closer match, waiting for a closer match to come in, which ultimately is what I did.
Right.
And, but so in the meantime, I worked on my maternal line and got a lot of new information on that. So that was great. So this past weekend, I went back to look at my 23andMe matches, and I reread the messages between Robin and myself. And the last one being from 2014. And I noticed that she had supplied me with a link to a MyHeritage tree.
And Robin, I'm sorry, Robin?
Robin was the woman in Melbourne. That was my
gotcha.
fourth
All
or
right,
sixth
thank you.
cousin. I mean, literally we match at maybe, 20 centimorgans? Nope,
Okay.
42 centimorgans. There
Okay.
it is. Okay. So I was like, oh, I wonder if I ever looked at this, and even if I did, it would have meant nothing to me then. Let's go have a look at it. So I had a look at it, and because my tree is well researched, I very easily got to my fourth great grandparents, Alexander Grieg and Margaret Forbes from Dysart Fife, Scotland, both born in the late 1700s, and which means that Robin and I are fifth cousins, confirmed fifth cousins, because
wow.
we share fourth and fifth grandparents.
Okay.
I think they're her fifth great grandparents, and they're my fourth, something like that. But we share only on the X chromosome. No autosomal, which is interesting because...
Does that mean it was passed down only through women?
Nope, it was passed down, but it was not... We've been through this before. It's so hard to explain. There is a specific matching pattern that X has. It's not as singular as a Y chromosome.
Okay.
Because women don't have Y chromosomes at all. Men do get get X chromosomes from their mother.
I see.
And they pass it to their daughters.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's only a few lines that it can go up. And of course, I traced it up and it worked out perfectly. That's exactly what it is. But it's interesting that we have 42 centimorgans from that far back on the X chromosome. It doesn't really mean anything other than it's interesting, and that it's obviously been relatively unrecombined for all these years.
How does that happen?
It just does.
Really?
It just does. It's just, however, it's completely random how you inherit DNA.
Wow.
So it's not something that anybody can ever do or control, or, you can just try to understand it as best as we can.
Or you've just got really strong genes that go through without being not
They're
contaminated.
fighters, man.
But
They're fighters.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to persist. Survival of the fittest.
I want this woman to know who I am.
Exactly.
Says Alexander Grieg.
Can you imagine though, like
born
if
in
you could
1763.
control that? Like, I've got this manifest destiny that with my DNA that I want this strand to go through.
Time travel. If only I could time travel.
Well,
Yeah. You just looked at me like, it's possible.
Well, we read history books and we try to imagine, and we can visit places where, our relatives may have been and that kind of thing, and imagine. But that's kind of part of the human experience, isn't it? To kind of
You're
wonder
right.
what came before us.
That's
and
true.
What will come after us? We have no idea.
Yeah. There's more.
Oh.
Okay, so then I noticed. So I went back to 23andMe and I looked at the chromosome browser and saw where we matched. That's where I realized we matched just on the X chromosome. And there is another match in common that also matches us in that same place on the X chromosome, but matches me a little higher. So she's a little closer.
Okay.
So she matches on another chromosome. And I got in touch with her. She's a second cousin to Robin, but they've never heard of each other. And she was great about getting right back to me and showed me her tree and once again figured it out. Well, actually, she didn't know much about the Griegs, but I was able to figure it out through.
Did she remember you from all those years ago?
No, this is not
Robin.
Robin. This is another woman who is a cousin to both of us. She's a second cousin to Robin.
Gotcha.
And but she and I match a little more than Robin and I match.
I was still stuck on Robin.
Yes.
All right.
Get over Robin. Robin has flown the coop.
Oh, my God.
See what I did there?
Yeah, the red Robin. Yeah, she's gone bobbing along.
All right. So so she was lovely, and we've been talking, and her father, who is my third cousin 2 times removed, was a celebrated World War II codebreaker who had several books written about him. So I have some fun reading to catch up on.
Oh, wow. How fun.
Yeah. And there's one that he actually wrote too they're all about World War II. And he was like a code breaker, literally like Alan Turing.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe not, obviously not as famous as Alan Turing.
Yeah. And hopefully, not as tragic. Didn't he die
Hopefully.
penniless or something?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah. And how do you feel knowing that you could never break a code? Like it's all about math and that kind of thing.
Wait, now that you said that, I kind of do break codes.
Yeah, I guess you do with the DNA. You're always searching.
Man.
Oh my God, Julie Dixon Jackson.
It's all come to fruition.
Code breaker.
So the moral of the story is, though more distant matches will probably not help you find your immediate family, they're extremely beneficial in helping you confirm your traditional genealogy research. Because this is all stuff that I found by going through records and going. Fife has a lot of records that you can access on Ancestry and Family Search and Find My Past. So I was able to do that. And then it was confirmed I have these 2 matches that come directly from those people. So
how exciting.
It's very exciting.
So how is it cautionary?
Cautionary meaning don't ignore anything.
Oh, don't ignore it.
Don't throw out matches that are more distant that you can't figure out yet, because we learn every day and we get new matches every day.
Because I was thinking, cautionary, like, don't do this because...
Okay, I misspoke.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's like that you never know where something may lead you.
It's true.
And at the time that you find it, it may look like it's not leading you anywhere, but don't just throw it away because it actually could lead you somewhere later. It might be that one puzzle piece that you need further down the line.
Yes.
It's
Never
like
disregard
life.
anything.
It's like life.
Right. Be a hoarder of everything.
No.
Isn't that it? Is that what you're saying, Rich?
No, but I think about that like when I throw out business cards. Like, God, I took this business card and like, oh God, do I keep it? It's been in my wallet for like a year. I'm never going to, I've never called this person or emailed this person. Just throw it out.
You just never know.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah.
Because that's actually happened to me before.
Has it?
When I've finally gotten rid of something, like 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I used to have that, and I could have used that for this exact situation. That's actually happened to me before.
Really?
Which, once again, reaffirms my hoarding tendencies.
This is why my wallet is so fat with business cards. Then.
Right. Maybe you should have a separate business card holder.
Maybe I should.
Maybe I'll make you one. All right, let's take a break.
If you're enjoying Cutoff Genes, please subscribe, rate, and review. Now, back to Julie and me.
Okay, guys, we're back. It's story time, Rich.
I love story time.
Me
the
too.
first story time of 2019.
Yes.
Tell me a story, Julie.
It's a doozy. Well, I'm going to have Janine Cate tell you the story.
Ooh, okay.
She is a listener. Actually, she's not a listener. I saw her. She is now.
Hi, Janine.
Hi, Janine. I saw a message that she posted on Christmas in one of the DNA sites, and it was amazing. So I had to get the scoop on the whole thing and share it with you guys.
Good scoop, Dixon Jackson.
That's me. So this is the first part of the interview we did a few days ago, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Hi, everybody. I have on the line Janine Cate, whose story I read on Facebook in, I think, DNA Detectives. Is that right, Janine?
Correct.
Yes. And it was such an extraordinary story that I immediately felt the need to share it with all of you guys. So that's what we're doing. Thanks for being here, Janine.
And you're welcome. This is a fun thing to talk about.
Yay, I'm excited. Okay, why don't we start by you telling us a little bit of your history with genealogy?
I realized I got drugged into family history screaming and kicking.
Uh-huh.
My sister is our family genealogist and quite proficient, and I never felt any need to do anything. But about 15 years ago, she started this thing called the Sisters Getaway, where she would drag me along with her to these family history-related things. And we're actually, sometimes I think I was more like the slave labor than anything else. For example, about 12 years ago, she and I met up in Chicago, and we went to my aunt's house. And we immediately, after we arrived, we set up a video camera and we interviewed my aunt and recorded it. We then jumped in the car and drove to Warrenville. Now, my ancestors came out of Warrenville, and my sister had called ahead and made arrangements with the Warrenville Historical Society. Their museum was not open, but for some reason, the director came over, unlocked the museum, and allowed us to be unsupervised in the museum for a couple of hours.
You're kidding.
Yes, she had a dinner party at her house, and we madly sat down and scanned and cataloged as many pictures as possible of our family relatives.
Wow.
And so I literally sat there in front of a computer typing in the names, the dates, the places while my sister was madly scanning pictures. After we finished this, we got home late at night and crashed at my aunt's house. The next morning, we drove to Wisconsin to my uncle's house and repeated the whole exercise all over again.
Oh, my gosh. You guys are the Thelma and Louise of genealogy.
Yes. And then we drove back from Wisconsin in time to get on a plane and go home.
Wow.
And that was sort of my introduction to family history.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like we never did anything fun the whole time. It was just work, work, work. But I did have one magic moment. After we had spent those hours scanning and cataloging the pictures, I had come home and logged into Ancestry, I believe, and looked at the 1880 census for Warrenville. And as I read the names, a face would jump. I could see their face. I knew who their neighbors were. I knew who their husbands and children were. And I literally almost started to cry.
Oh, cool.
Because these people were real to me. And that's kind of, I thought, maybe this family history has something to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when you look at census, you picture the street and picture somebody coming to the door and seeing who's in the house. Is that what you're referring to?
And it was real. They were real people.
Yeah, I have that experience too. It kind of makes people human.
It's a beautiful thing that I was inspired to, I should do something. And so my first attempt at family history, I went on my family tree and found a line that ended. And I decided if I'm going to research somebody, I don't want it to be Daniel Johnson. I mean, it needs to be an unusual name. So I picked Ori Tyler. I thought,
you did.
At least it sounds interesting. He was born in 1785 in Connecticut. And so for years I dabbled with Ori Tyler. Eventually I hit the big time with Ori. He lived in the era that his father, whose name we didn't know, probably served in the Revolutionary War.
Oh.
And at that time, the Revolutionary War pension files were just starting to become available digitally. And my sister, always helpful, lent me her library card information because her public library allowed free access to the online database for the pension files.
Okay.
I logged in and I thought, what do I know about Ori Tyler? I know his uncle's name was Abel and that he's from Connecticut. So I go to the state of Connecticut, look at the Tylers. Abel was the first name on the list, so I go with the second name on the list, which was Amos. The screen fills with this old-time handwritten document. On the very first line, it says, I, Ori Tyler, the only son of Amos Tyler, wish to claim my father's pension.
Oh, wow.
It was electrifying.
Pay dirt.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
I mean, it was magic. And once you have those magic moments, they have you.
Yep.
You can't walk away.
Yep, I hear you.
They're real. And so that was exciting. And, that went on a great adventure. So I really started to branch out a little bit more. But I didn't really cross over to the big time until actually just a couple years ago. I went through the process of joining the DAR.
Oh, okay.
Daughters of the American Revolution. Now, if you're not familiar with their organization, the application process is very rigorous.
Yeah.
You have to submit documentation for the birth, death, and marriage for every person on that link to your Revolutionary War ancestor. Now, I had a family tree. I knew who all these people were, but now I had to prove it. And so I went through the process of finding the death certificates. I went through the process of getting the birth certificates. Now, I do admit, sometimes that was me simply calling my sister and asking her to email it to me. But sometimes I actually had to do the work myself.
Right.
And so I gained the skills you need to be a researcher for family history through that process of documenting every person on my tree to get to my Revolutionary War ancestor, Amos Tyler.
Very cool.
And that's where I got my skill. Now, back to my sister and the Sisters Getaway.
Yes.
The last few years, these getaways have gotten more fun, and we began going to Roots Tech. In Salt Lake City, Utah, in the spring every year, they have this huge family history conference. Now, I do admit, the first year I went, I didn't go to the classes. I just went to the entertainment part of it and wandered around the vendor hall.
Right.
Now, if you're not familiar with the vendor hall, it's like Disneyland for genealogists. They have the coolest stuff in there, and you just wander around and look at it. And one of those cool things in there was Ancestry DNA, and they were selling kits. And, of course, it's on sale, so you have to have it. And the first kit I bought was in 2014 for my then 8-year-old son, who was adopted.
Okay.
Because I thought, oh, here's a cool way for him to learn more about his history, and he's racially ambiguous, so his ethnicity is hard to determine. In fact, we jokingly call him Ricky the Spy because he figured he could pretend to be anybody he wanted because he could match so many different ethnicities.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of a cool thing to have.
So that was our first exposure to DNA, and of course it's totally cool. You get the report, and you get the map, and you have your people on the map, and so that was really fun. Next year we go back. I'm wandering around the vendor hall again, and this time they have a sale for family tree DNA.
Okay.
And that's where we hit the big time. I buy kits for first my aunt, who was 92, I think, at the time. Then my brother, then my uncle, then my aunt. Eventually I get to myself, my children, my husband, my in-laws, and I cannot tell you how many DNA tests I have done. And I really thought I was done, like I'd done enough DNA.
Right.
Of course, my heritage came out, and I bought 1 or 2 kits over there, and then, of course, uploaded everybody's information over there. And again, I thought I was done. Then my sister called me out of the blue and begged me to take a 23andMe DNA test. She was taking a genetic DNA class, a genetic genealogy class, and part of the class is you were supposed to have your DNA tested at the 4 major vendors at the time. She had taken a DNA test at 23andMe and failed it twice.
Oh.
And I was like, how do you fail a DNA test? But apparently it's possible.
Yeah. It's happened to a few people. I've had to send back twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she failed and begged me to please have my DNA tested at 23andMe. Just as a caveat, by the way, she was able to figure out what to do when you fail. You bite your cheek.
Yep. That's what I tell everybody.
And she was able to get her DNA to finally pass.
Yeah,
so she
that's
actually
good.
Does have a profile up on 23andMe.
Oh, very good. Okay. Yeah, no, that's actually a good for listeners. I always tell people before they do it, like a few minutes before they do it, just like chew the inside of your cheeks for a while just to release those cells. And usually it's you get pay dirt that way. Yes,
and so that's how I ended up in 23andMe, which brings us to our lovely story.
Okay.
The day before Christmas, I noticed I had some new DNA match, actually one new DNA match, and it was a close match. On 23andMe, I have my daughter, my sister, my first cousin, and then this new DNA match. So it's close.
How close?
Now, clicking on it, I could easily see that this comes from my paternal grandmother's side of the family. And I sent off a message saying basically that. It says, I can see that you're a descendant of my great-grandparents, and here's their names and their information. Now, that in and of itself is not horribly helpful because my grandmother had 14 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
That's a big family. So there's a lot of potential for second cousins
Sure.
here. And that's how close this match was.
She was like a second cousin. Okay.
Match. I go back and look and see that they're more closely related to one of my second cousins named Edwina.
Okay.
Edwina is my second cousin through Lydia. The way this works is my grandmother's name was Sarah Jane, and Lydia and Sarah Jane were sisters. So my grandmother and Edwina's great-grandmother were sisters. So we're second cousins once removed.
Gotcha.
And I didn't really think much about it. It was Christmas Day, and I went on my way. The next day, I'm in a van driving to San Diego to go to a wedding. Actually, I'm in the passenger seat. And, of course, it's a long drive, and I have nothing to do, so I pull out my phone, and I thought, I'll follow up on this DNA match, because it did have one thing at the top, that this woman was 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, 92 years old, I should pay attention to this.
Yeah.
Now, lucky for me, in the 1990s, my relatives who were descendants of my great-grandparents had a reunion in Michigan. And at that time, they documented the names of all the children, all the grandchildren, the spouses, the birth dates, the burial dates, and the great-grandchildren and so forth. So I had document pages that my sister had cleaned up and sent out via email. So I had it on my phone to look at. So I go back to the DNA profile, and there was some more information on that profile that was kind of unusual. It starts out saying that she's from Detroit, Michigan. It's like, okay, that's where my great-grandparents were from. Actually, my father was born in Detroit, too. But that she hadn't had any contact from her family since 1946.
And she's 92.
She's 92, and I'm like, wait, that's kind of interesting.
There's something more to that.
Listed that her father came from a large German family, and she even listed her birth date as June 17th, 1926.
Okay.
So I pull out this document list of the children of my great-grandparents, and I can see, I'm guessing, okay, it's probably a descendant of Lydia, so I pull out Lydia's page. Now, Lydia herself had, I believe, 9 or 10 children, so this is still, there's quite a lot of information there to look at. But I find that Lydia had a daughter named Caroline, and Caroline's birthday on the sheet that I had was listed as July 17th, 1926, so it's only 1 month off.
Right, which could easily be a typo.
And her father is actually Russian, but her mother was German and came from a large German family. So I'm thinking, hey, I think I've got the right person. So I reach out and I send a Facebook message to Edwina and say, hey, this person is listed as your first cousin. Do you know him? She pretty quickly messages me back and says, I've never heard that name before. I don't know. And me, because I had nothing else to do for hours and hours, I typed her the exact word for word what the profile said.
Okay.
I didn't have to wait long before she came back with, I definitely think that's Caroline, and that she disappeared in December of 1943. I went and looked at my cheat sheet, and I had never looked at the burial information at the bottom of the page because I was dealing with a living person.
Right.
I go to the bottom of the page, and there it is. Caroline Yerke disappeared December 1943. So I'm pretty excited here thinking, I think this is who it is.
Yeah.
So I send another message on 23andMe, and I say, I think you're Caroline Yerke. And I introduce myself and explain that my father was her first cousin. I leave my phone number and my personal email address. While I'm waiting for a response, Edwina and I are still messaging back and forth.
Sure.
And she sends me another tidbit. She says, hey, I recently spoke to another cousin who said that that Caroline had disappeared in 1943 after she came home late from curfew and got locked out of the house and was never heard from again. And so I'm like, wait a second, this sounds like she ran away from home.
Wait, so she was, what, in 1943? She was, what, 17?
17 and a half.
Okay. And the story is that she missed curfew, so she got locked out of the house and was never seen again.
Never heard from again.
Wow. And we're back.
That was fun, Julie.
You know I love a good cliffhanger.
Oh, my God. I love these stories. I love that all these people have stories and they want to share them with you.
I do,
That's
too.
so great.
I love it so much.
And you going out after them.
I'm after your stories, folks. So just to be clear, Janine thinks that this match is possibly Caroline, who hadn't been seen or heard from since she was 17 in the 40s.
Okay, wow.
And, I mean, we must know the rest of the story.
Right.
And guess what? We will.
The 40s. I mean, that's 70,
Yes.
80 years ago.
Yes.
My God. Oh, my God.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
So, yeah, we're going to hear the conclusion next week.
I can't wait.
Me neither. Guys, if you have a story, and everybody does, who doesn't have a story?
I don't know if I have a story.
Okay. Everybody probably that listens to this has a good DNA story.
I have crazy relatives. So,
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Not DNA story, huh?
Nope, unless a DNA testing comes into it.
Well, I haven't done a DNA test yet.
I almost got you one for Christmas,
I like my shirt
but I got
better.
your shirt instead.
A shirt with a DNA strand.
I should have wrapped the shirt. I should have wrapped it in the shirt. Whatever.
You know what she's planning to do, folks? She's gonna I'm gonna wear it, and then she's gonna go swipe some DNA off the shirt from it, so she can test secretly.
I think you would do it willingly. Why would I do that?
Of course I will. Well, just because you're Scoop Dixon Jackson.
That's me. All right. So, guys, please reach out to me. I love talking to you guys. I know some people have reached out. I think I have too many ways to get in contact with me because I forget where people are contacting me. So, if you haven't heard from me, reach out again, please. My apologies. I'll try to be better organized. That said, tell people about yourself, Rich.
I'm Richard Castle, and when I'm not co-hosting a podcast and producing it, I am a pianist and a songwriter and a musical theater writer. I have a website, richardcastle.com, or you can follow me on Twitter @CastleSongs.
Yay. And I'm Julie Dixon Jackson @Jules Jackson on the Twitter. You can find the podcast on Twitter @Cutoff Jeans Pod. You can also find us our Facebook page, Cutoff Jeans Podcast. Ask to join, answer a question. Boom. Also, send me a message, JulesJackson @cutoffjeans.com. And feel free to spread the podcast to like-minded friends.
Yeah, you never know who you might be talking to at a party, and they have a DNA story.
Exactly.
Seriously, it's amazing.
I'm telling you, everybody has one.
Yeah, and you know what I tell them?
The truth is in your genes.
You got it.